He will be 2-7 against top 5 opponents in his 6 full seasons with the Buckeyes.
Now you're going to take on the road, one of the best rush defenses in the country in Penn State. You're already having trouble rushing the ball. So what does that mean, Ben? That means Ohio State is going to have to rely on Will Howard to throw the ball on the road.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern.
There is so much to get to here as we welcome you into our second hour, live on a Monday on the Early Line on SportsGrid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. We continue to recap the Sunday slate, finish that off here in week number 9 of the NFL season. The opening Saturday in November, week number 10, and a ton of chaos in college football, now just one day away from the first unveiling of the college football playoff rankings on Tuesday night, the first time ever in the 12-team era. Speaking of college athletics, the start of the 2024-25 college basketball season today. We're just about an hour and a half from the first of 356 D1 men's and women's hoops games tipping off on this opening day of the year. And we'll talk some Monday Night Football as well in Kansas City. The Chiefs and the Buccaneers to close out week number 9 in the opening half of this NFL campaign. DRS, so much to get to in this second hour and beyond up until 11 a.m. Eastern.
That's why we love Mondays, man. Yes, we like Sundays. We like to watch the football. We like to digest. We like to bet the football games. Then we get to analyze it. And then before you know it, we got a Monday Night Football game coming up tonight, which should be a good one to bet on. I do think we might have a blowout on the horizon, which is usually tough to say when you're dealing with the Kansas City Chiefs, but we might be heading towards that. College basketball gets started today. A ton of games. I believe the first game starting at noon. And then again, I'm going to save this up here for a little bit later in the show where I like sometimes I just feel like, you know, you have a hand tied behind your back at all times when you just say, what's the best game of the day on opening day? Hear me out on this, man. Let's just say opening night of the NFL season. Like, you know, the ring night, it's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs versus whoever they play. Forget about even this year. It always seems like it's the Kansas City Chiefs. We want to just put that game on at midnight on opening night because that will work wonderfully throughout the community. The best games should be on at the times that every single person in the country can watch. You can't sell me otherwise. I just don't understand what we're doing sometimes.
So, DRS, I'll ask you this. What's bigger, the NFL or college basketball?
Oh, it's the NFL. Of course it is.
By like a landslide, right?
Yeah.
So if you were to put Gonzaga and Baylor in Spokane at, let's say, 4 p.m. local time or 5 p.m. local time, right at the start of when Monday Night Football kicks off, don't you think the numbers actually would be worse than –
No.
See, I disagree.
Because college –
they'll also get the Monday Night Football lead in on you. Okay. Go.
Like college basketball fans are going to watch that college basketball game regardless over that NFL game. But if you're a college basketball fan that actually has a job outside of the West Coast, you're not watching this game. Might get caught up on it in the morning. You might DVR it. Like, this game is not going to get over until 1 a.m. You got to be kidding me at that point here. And look, West Coast games, bad teams, hey, they're at home, that's fine. But if you're marketing this as opening day in college basketball with 2 top 10 opponents that people would absolutely devour at 8 o'clock, have fun, at least be flipping back and forth between an NFL game that has a propensity to be a blowout and a boring game, it would do way more numbers. Like 11:30 does no numbers, 0 numbers. You might as well not even have the game.
Wrong. See, I think you're wrong here because you get the lead in of Monday Night Football on ESPN2. So you take all of those football viewers that are going to stay up regardless, and it's not just the East Coast that watches sports, and they stay up to watch the game, if even for an hour. Yeah, after the Manning cast, right into it. It's all right, Commissioner Right Side. We'll get more of your thoughts on college basketball in a moment. What do you even care?
Lord.
You don't even watch college basketball until conference action in January. You say that every year.
Yeah, they make it easy on me. Yeah, they make it easy on me by putting good games at 11:30. I mean, nobody's going to watch this stuff. Hey, who did they play last week? Yeah, they played last week. Just horrendous. You want to do a banger here on a Monday? Put that thing right around dinner time and watch the numbers and hype it up, and we will watch. Doing that like the 24 hours when they used to open it up and play a game every single hour throughout the day. Yeah, it was fun. The games in the middle of the night, nobody watched. The games at prime time, we all watched. Yeah, exactly.
The tip-off marathon was awesome.
Yeah, the tip-off marathon. If you would have put Baylor, going up in this game against Gonzaga at 2 a.m., nobody would watch it. Not a single person would watch it.
Well, 2 a.m. would be a little bit ridiculous. Anyway, let's go back to Sunday. Bring the same heat to your head coach in Philadelphia. Nick Sirianni, man. If all you're going to be able to say that you are is a CEO head coach to make the correct game management decisions, then be so much better than you are. Luckily, his team is incredibly talented because they saved him from getting roasted all day long on Philly Sports Talk Radio. The Eagles win 28-23, but do not cover only because of Sirianni. Saquon Barkley, 199 total yards, 2 total touchdowns, hurdled a Jacksonville defender backward. I'd never seen anything like it. He is a sensational addition to this Philadelphia offense. Let's see if we have it here in this clip reel, in the Kelly Greens. Will we see Saquon Barkley go up and over a Jags defender from behind? Yeah? That's it? No, I don't know.
No.
Anyway, he hurdled a lot of guys yesterday. And Devontae Smith, one of the best touchdown catches in a week full of incredible touchdown catches that you will ever see. And Nakobe Dean seals the game with an INT late in the Eagles' own end zone with just a $1:42 remaining. The Eagles win. Sirianni ain't great.
No, he's not. Let's go over all the points yesterday from yesterday's game, starting with the uniform here. Ben, if we were in the 1990s and we had social media, which include like Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever you want, they would have never been allowed to change from the Kelly Green, one of the most dynamic uniforms in the history of professional sports, that he just said, oh, I'm a Boston guy and I don't like the Kelly Green. Let's go to Midnight Green. And it's stuck there. But you see yesterday how electric that uniform is, how pretty it is. While that's not an everyday thing, that's for millionaires to make less dollars on because they obviously only want to wear their good uniforms a couple times a year. Let's separate that. Let's get to Nick Sirianni. And I start here with the praise of Nick Sirianni. 40-19 in the regular season. And I think yesterday on the telecast, they said at one point the 13th best winning percentage of any head coach in the history of the NFL. That's the good stuff. But also you can equate it to Detroit, right? You have 2 absolute rockheads at head coach, make terrible decisions week after week, but their team's so talented, they cover up for those mistakes. It's okay. Like, when did we get away from, boy, we're playing a bad football team in the Jaguars, and every chance we get to just score points to take another punch at their gut here where they're going to surrender, let's do this. But yesterday, Nick Sirianni at every single turn just said, you know what? I'm having too much fun out here. Let's make sure that the fans get what they deserve, and late in the game we'll have a close game because I'm going to sabotage so many points where the other team is able to get it back involved. Now, you might also say, well, the game really shouldn't have been that close, and it shouldn't. One of the most egregious non-overturned fumble calls from Saquon Barkley, which led directly to a touchdown. If that doesn't happen, we probably don't get close. But at the same time, you leave that margin for error by leaving points on the football field, which makes it under a touchdown late in the game. You can't do that, and you're rescued by Nakobe Dean at the end of the game with a great interception. I agree with you here. Like, Nick Sirianni, they obviously like to play for the guy, but he actively sabotages them on a week-to-week basis. There's nothing wrong, Ben, with taking points when you have the lead against a dead team.
Especially like extra points when a 2-point conversion is only worth a 1 point more, just a single point more. I understand the debate between 3 and 6 and eventually 7. I get that. It is a completely change of your possession. But just all of it, even the end to go with the Jake Elliott long field goal, knowing what the con would be of missing and allowing a defunct Jaguars offense to have a short field. I mean, truthfully, hey, shout out to Saquon Barkley. Jalen Hurts played a good game, and Devontae Smith for figuring things out. The Eagles are 6-2. They have won 4 consecutive, 3 consecutive. They've been pretty good here as of late and feeling better coming out of the bye. DRS, plenty more from Sunday on the other side of the break. We're going to hammer the Saints, who I don't even know if they need us to poke holes in what they're doing. 7 consecutive losses, losing to the Panthers as a touchdown favorite, albeit on the road. Dennis Allen should be gone. Yesterday or last week or last season, how he has remained beats me. A couple of overtime games yesterday that were very impactful. We'll talk about it all up next and finish off the Sunday slate on this Monday on the Early Line. It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was clicking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Tatum has fixed that hitch. He now shoots it at the top of his jump, his release. It's really pure. And right now he's shooting it at 49% from 3. Now, I'm not saying he's going to shoot at 49% from 3 for the season. But if he's at 42.3%, Lord have mercy, look out below. Jason Tatum, right now, my number 6 player in the NBA.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Are you okay with him moving to the head of the class of the Heisman with those 2 games? Because he wasn't even in the discussion before those 2 games.
This is a big opportunity for Dylan if he wants to continue to make his case for the Heisman Trophy, and I think he's shown that. You know, I mean, what is he, a 6th-tier player who's going to probably end up setting most of the passing marks because he's been around for so long? So why not also throw a Heisman Trophy in the mix?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
We recap the rest of the Sundays slate live right here on the Early Line. My co-host and I debating college basketball TV viewership ratings during the commercial break. DRS, yesterday in the Pacific Northwest, the Seattle Seahawks and the LA Rams. Not a pretty game for most of it, but the Rams do win it in overtime, 26-20, covering as a 1.5 favorite on the road. Under 48.5 comes through. Matthew Stafford, walk-off touchdown pass, 39 yards out to DeMarcus Robinson, who makes a great one-handed haul to win the game for LA. Geno Smith, threw 3 interceptions, including one that was brought back 103 yards by Cam Kitchens for Los Angeles, the longest play in the NFL this season. The Rams win a huge divisional game, 3rd consecutive win for LA. The Seahawks fall to a game below 500, 4-5 overall.
What a gutsy win by the Rams yesterday at this point. Also brings back the case where when it's time for Geno Smith to win a football game all by himself, you get the good and the really, really bad. 3 interceptions yesterday. You can't have that. A QBR rating of a 20%. But I want to focus on the Rams because this is an intriguing team. Coming into the season, didn't really know what to think about him. Okay, let's get Puka. Let's get Cooper Kupp healthy. Got Matthew Stafford. How can we do that? They have one of the best running backs in football in Kyron Williams. Now Matthew Stafford reinvigorated. And Puka Nacua, who we weren't sure if he was going to play the rest of the season or if even play this week due to getting injured once again on his knee. He was only 1 catch for 11 yards. But Cooper Kupp, 14 targets, 11 catches, 104 yards. DeMarcus Robinson stepping up in that B-roll, 6 receptions, 94 yards. I love what I see out of the Rams. This is a playoff team right now. Could they go at the trade deadline and maybe add on just a little bit maybe to the defense? But boy, oh boy, you talk about a team 2 weeks ago that was making phone calls like, we are for sale. You want Stafford, come get him. You want Cooper Kupp, come get him. You can't do that now. You have a legitimate chance to win the NFC West right now.
No doubt about it, DRS. There is one team above 500 in the division. It's Arizona. They're 5-4. The Niners are 4-4. The Rams now 4-4. The Seahawks fall to 4-5. Spoiling a career day for Jackson Smith and Jigba. Career best 180 yards and 2 of the 3 touchdowns that Geno Smith threw. But the reason Geno Smith is near the top of the stats from a yardage perspective, completion attempts perspective, is because they're just airing it out, and it's not all that great. Sacked 7 times yesterday by a young Rams D-line that has now been filling in for Aaron Donald with guys like Byron Young and Brendan Fisk and his FSU teammate Jared Verse, who I think should win Defensive Rookie of the Year. They are playing at a great level right now. So L.A., after winning 2 games in 5 days, continues the momentum. Puka Nacua, DRS, ejected in the opening half. They said a punch was thrown. I'm not so sure it was. Regardless, they find a way to win. The other LA team doing what I expected in Cleveland. Listen, it's the Jameis Winston experience for a reason. Last week, 3 touchdown tosses, no INTs. This week, no touchdown tosses, 3 interceptions. The Chargers win 27-10 in Cleveland, easily covering as a 1.5 favorite, under 41 and a hook. Donnie, the Chargers have gone under in 7 of 8 games this year.
I love the Chargers. I love the way they play football. That roster is only getting a bit more talented when they start to spend some money over the next couple of years because Harbaugh always has those guys ready to roll. And we talked just about the Chicago Bears as well. How they didn't pick up the phone and say, Harbaugh, you are our guy is, just an unbelievably egregious mistake because you see the Chargers where I actually wanted Harbaugh to step into the situation, Ben, and say, you know what? I'm going to keep the same team that was really talented around me to see what I can do. He stripped it down to the nuts and bolts here, and you're still seeing this team that has a lot of young. Quentin Johnston couldn't get out of his own way as a rookie, right? Now look at him, 4 catches, 118 yards, and a touchdown on the road. The draft Lab McConkey had a big week last week, 5 catches for 64 yards. They're telling Justin Herbert, you don't have to be a gunslinger, throw 45 times. I got you on the ground. I'm getting you J.K. Dobbins, 14 carries for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns yesterday. This team is going to be built for the long haul, and they are going to build something special. I'll call it right now, within 2 years, they're taking down the Kansas City Chiefs as the perennial power in the AFC West. I'm calling it right now.
That would snap like a decade-long AFC West divisional title streak for Kansas City by that point. Harbaugh just wins. Look at his numbers wherever he has been. Jameis did throw a touchdown yesterday. My apologies. Yet 3 interceptions. J.K. Dobbins scoring twice. He has scored in all 5 wins for L.A. Has not found pay dirt in any of the 3 losses. You can see the recipe for success. The Titans beat the Patriots in overtime. Cool. The Drake May experience was some good, some bad. The leading rusher yesterday for New England, whatever. Let's talk about Carolina. They beat the Saints yesterday outright at home as a touchdown underdog. The 4th win for Carolina since the start of last year. An underdog in all 26 games. They are now 6-18-2 against the spread. The Panthers, even with Bryce Young, throwing for less than 200 yards, again beat the Saints 23-22. New Orleans, with Derek Carr back into the lineup, has dropped 7 consecutive games. This Saints organization needs to completely overhaul everybody. Mickey Loomis, see ya. Thanks for your years of service. Dennis Allen, we don't care if you've been here for a decade. Get looking for a new job. The Saints need to completely rebuild, Donnie. It is gone now in the Big Easy.
Yeah, yesterday I did have a Taysom Hill anytime touchdown. I gave out as my Sell Me Something special on the show yesterday, plus 187 cashed in. That was the only good thing here. Outside of Alvin Kamara's 29. How did you lose? You played the Carolina Panthers. You tell me you had a running back go for 29 for $155, and you lost that game. Why? Because Derek Carr is throwing hospital balls to wide receivers and maybe ending Chris Olave's career after yet another concussion at this point. And I had Olave needed just 40 yards in this game. So I'm driving home bed yesterday. Like, hey, he's got one catch for, what do you have? 13 yards. Like, oh, that looks good. I'm like, are they not throwing him the football? So I got home and see the highlights here. You can't leave your wide receivers out to dry like that. Yes, he shouldn't have been hit like that, but that's the quarterback's fault here. Derek Carr, what a disastrous in Las Vegas, disastrous out here for the Saints, and they're going 2-7. It's a wrap, and you're right. Change everything down there. You know what? Trade deadline's coming up. You got some pretty good players on that team. Move them.
1-6 ATS for New Orleans in this 7-game win streak. Derek Carr, the first quarterback to lose to 31 different teams in the NFL, and he plays the Raiders week 17. College football action next. It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of a week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Tatum has fixed that hitch. He now shoots it at the top of his jump, his release is really pure. And right now he's shooting it at 49% from 3. Now, I'm not saying he's shooting 49% from 3 for the season. But if he's at 42, 43%, Lord have mercy, look out below. Jason Tatum, right now, my number 6 player in the NBA.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in the set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Are you okay with him moving to the head of the class of the Heisman with those 2 games? Because he wasn't even in the discussion before those 2 games.
This is a big opportunity for Dylan if he wants to continue to make his case for the Heisman Trophy, and I think he's shown that. What is he, a 6th-tier player who's going to probably end up setting most of the passing marks because he's been around for so long? So why not also throw a Heisman Trophy in the mix?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Our 4th top 5 tilt of the 2024 college football season on the opening weekend of November. 3 versus 4 inside Happy Valley. Not so happy for the home team, though, on Saturday once again in a spot where maybe, just maybe, James Franklin and Penn State could rise to the occasion and win a game the odds did not expect the Nittany Lions to win. Nope. The narrative continues for Penn State. The narrative, at least for one Saturday, slightly changes for Ryan Day and the Buckeyes. Ohio State wins on the road 20-13, covering as a 3.5-point favorite against the Nittany Lions. Ohio State avoids what would have been an upset in their second loss of the year. Multiple red zone turnovers for both of these two teams, including that fumble you see there for the Pennsylvania native Will Howard. But when it mattered most, Ohio State's red zone defense, the best in college football, bows up once again. And a Penn State offense that had been so much more efficient throughout the first 7 games of this year looks awful on Saturday once again against the Buckeyes.
They did, and they're supposed to lose that game. They always lose this football game, but the saving grace for James Franklin now is, I mean, he's getting the thunderbolt. Like, if we just had still BCS era or whatever the, top 4 teams make it in, top 6, whatever. Like, James Franklin's like, man, this is going to be really tough on me. But now there's 12 teams, so you saw the post-game press conference. A lot of coaches be like, you know what? I just got to own this. Like, I can't win these big games. I don't even know what to change at this point, but we'll try to get better. And, oh, yeah, we're out of the national championship picture. It looked like he couldn't give a damn they lost that game. Like, yeah, so Ohio State, we always lose that game. But you know what? We can still make the college football playoff. That's all that matters. That's not all that matters. It's the same MO every single year at Penn State. Play a team where you might not beat them. You know you're never going to beat them. But play a directional score, a MAC opponent, run up the score, beat them by 50 points, and get an extra 3 years on a contract extension. Drew Aller, 12 of 20, 1 interception, no touchdowns. Not good enough. That vaunted ground game, which turned into a tight end, playing basically, wildcat football, 3 carries for 47 yards and nothing else from the rest of your crew. Did you even have any wide receivers? Singleton led you, and also Warren's a tight end. You have nothing at wide receiver. Ohio State is too talented for you to have a 10-0 lead and basically go into a shell as if you already won that football game. And credit Will Howard, who had a monster day in his own head going, I always wanted to play for Penn State. I can't wait to get there. And he throws a touchdown pass to the other team right away, which gets you down 10-0, and still had the composure to throw 2 touchdowns the rest of the way with no interceptions, ground out the ground game. And what did I love the best here? A goal line stand from Ohio State, which gave them the football back with roughly 5.5 minutes left. Penn State never saw the football again in a 1-possession game. That's Ohio State imposing their will on Penn State in Beaver Stadium.
After just 2.1 yards per carry for the Bucs a week ago against Nebraska, and Penn State's numbers, better rushing defense, 4.7 yards per carry, Quinshon Judkins, 95, as DRS alluded to, and Will Howard, 2 critical first down scrambles, or at least taken off and running design play calls to end the game, because he wasn't great. He threw for $182, 2 touchdowns, but did throw another touchdown to Penn State to start off the game. Drew Aller and Andy Kotelnicki's offense wasn't much better on Saturday. James Franklin now 1-10 in his career against Ohio State. The only win unranked way back in 2017. He is now 1-13 against AP top 5 foes. He is 12-27 against ranked opponents. He is 3-18 against the AP top 10. Shall I continue? And yet, we look at the updated outlooks, DRS, and Penn State is minus 300 to reach the college football playoff. We said this on College Football Today, pointed out by Kevin. The idea that Penn State's most important game wasn't this top 5 tilt, despite the notoriety and the narrative surrounding. It was a week prior to that on the road in Camp Randall. Penn State is going to be favored in every other game to end out this year. Their Final Four. Penn State in the last 2 years since the start of 2022, 28-1 straight up as a favorite. The only loss against Ole Miss in the Peach Bowl last December. They are 0-5 straight up as an underdog, but they're not going to be a dog. So Penn State, despite not having a great win on the resume, is going to be a college football playoff team. So to your point, DRS, they're going to be ringing the bell in State College to the tune of maybe hosting a CFB game.
I love it. I'm telling you right now, Ben, I absolutely love this because James Franklin is going to probably be the highest paid coach in the history of college athletics within the next 2 to 3 years because he's going to be able to sell the fact that they're now making the college football playoffs. Do you see their schedule? They play absolutely nobody but Ohio State and lost that game at home. They're going to beat Washington, Purdue, Minnesota, and Maryland and make it into the college football playoff. Congratulations, Penn State. What you signed up for, right?
No better way to say it than that. More after the break.
it's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Tatum has fixed that hitch. He now shoots it at the top of his jump, his release is really pure. And right now he's shooting it at 49% from three. Now, I'm not saying he's going to shoot at 49% from three for the season. But if he's at 42, 43%, Lord have mercy, look out below. Jason Tatum, right now, my number 6 player in the NBA.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take!
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Are you okay with him moving to the head of the class of the Heisman with those two games? Because he wasn't even in the discussion before those two games.
This is a big opportunity for Dylan if he wants to continue to make his case for the Heisman Trophy, and I think he's shown that. What is he, a 6th-tier player who's going to probably end up setting most of the passing marks because he's been around for so long? So why not also throw a Heisman Trophy in the mix?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
It's a college hour here on the early line on SportsGrid. We recap the weekend and week number 10 of the college football season. We take an early look at the start of the 2024-25 college basketball season on this Monday as well. DRS elsewhere in Big Ten country, the number 1 team in the country continues to look dominant. Oregon goes on the road, taking on Michigan in the house of the reigning national champs and looks like the national championship contender. Michigan loses at home again, 38-17. The Ducks cover as a 14.5-point favorite. 44 and a hook was the total. It's skies over. 4th loss now for the Wolverines. They fall to 5-4. Oregon remains perfect, a perfect 9-0, and they have covered in 4 of their last 5 games.
You might think, Ben, that I will come on the show and absolutely slander the Michigan Wolverines for being a bad football team here in 2024, which they are. 5-4, unacceptable after a national championship season. But there you go. After a national championship season, Michigan fans, you sold your soul to the devil and won that championship. And that's all you can ask for, because you'll probably go back to being, doldrums for the next 10 to 15 years, but you're okay. You won that championship. But let's get back to present day college football. I love Dan Lanning. I love everything he stands for at the end of that football game. And shout out this, Sharon Moore's like, you know what? If we lose by 14, I might be able to sell this, but I don't want to lose and get blown out technically by 21 points. Did you see what he did at the end of the football game with his timeouts? Didn't want to call him because he thought Oregon would take a knee inside the 10-yard line. Little did Oregon say, we're going to run this clock down, but we're still going to run the football and try to score a touchdown. And they did, and they got the cover, which made this loss look even worse. So Sharon Moore flew up that, hey, I'm a head coach over here. We're in a coaching fraternity. Don't run the score up. And Lanning's like, you're playing for clicks over there, pal. Watch me pound another football game into the end zone. But did you see this, though? Michigan Wolverines, 28 carries for 105 yards. Oregon out Michigan in the big house. 37 carries for $176 and 4 touchdowns on the ground. Oregon, yes, they are the best team in college football, Ben.
No doubt about it right now, DRS. I don't think you can really argue that based on complementary and balanced football, Oregon does not look like the most balanced team on either side. Dylan Gabriel thrown for near 300 again. A touchdown pass, a touchdown run. Jordan James, 117 yards. Noah Whittington finds pay dirt twice. And Oregon limits Michigan to just 270 total yards. DRS outside of the Ohio State game and now 6 Big Ten matchups, Oregon has held its opponent to 301 yards or less, 250 or under in 2 of those 5 games. They are playing great football at this moment. Unfortunate in what was a great cocktail party to start between Georgia and Florida that the Gators lost their talented freshman quarterback, DJ Lagway, to what appeared to be a significant hamstring injury. Had to be carted off the field. So Aiden Warner, the Yale transfer, comes in. Not much he could do. 7 of 22 for 66 yards and an interception. But a lot of concern, I would say, for Georgia in Carson Beck. 3 interceptions once again. His third 3-interception game in the last 5 for UGA. He's got in this SEC sprint now, he's got 10 TDs to 11 INTs. However, Georgia scores 2 touchdowns late to pull away 34-20. The Bulldogs do not cover, though, as that 14.5-point favorite.
Georgia is a wagon, and it's a shame that their quarterback, who was supposed to come into the season as a Heisman favorite, is not performing up to capabilities. Because this game never should have been that close, and quite frankly, Georgia shouldn't be even in a position where they have 1 loss on the season, because Carson Beck, loves to absolutely throw interception after interception. You can argue if they had Alex Orji as their starting quarterback for Georgia, they would be perfect and unbeaten right now just by not turning the football over and running it with your talented backfield. Georgia's one of those teams where on any given Saturday, if they play their best football, Ben, they're going to be able to beat Oregon. But we don't get that on a week-to-week basis. And yet, we understand they're 7-1. They're number 2 in the country, and deservedly so. But you just feel when you come up to the big game, Carson Beck is not supposed to be a question mark. He's supposed to be an exclamation point saying, I'm one of the best out here. There's no question. I'm going to absolutely dominate in big game performances. He doesn't do that. And Florida, just by the way, gumption, just for hanging around, man, because that game was 8-1.
Yeah, man.
Watching the rest of that football game with him, you wonder how they even got it close at that point. Credit Georgia. They did win the game. I guess that's all that matters. But this game, you're right. Lagway plays all the way through, and Beck plays like that. We might be looking at a massive upset and saying, hey, Billy Napier, sorry, we weren't familiar with your game. You actually are a pretty good head coach.
Ohio State, now the national championship favorites, moving past Georgia based on the results of Saturday. Oregon, third best price, but backed by just over $1 at plus 450. 7 ranked teams go down in week number 10, 2 of them in top 25 clashes, Penn State being one. Pitt's unbeaten season comes to a close in a big way in Dallas. SMU remains perfect in ACC play, but South Carolina at home hammers Texas A&M, winning outright as a 2.5-point underdog. It seemed too public of a dog. The public was right. Texas Tech beats Iowa State 23-22. Baron Morton leads a late touchdown drive in Clemson, who had not lost since its season opener against Georgia, winning 6 straight games with an average margin of victory of better than 27 points per, gets beat by Louisville in Death Valley. On Saturday night, the Cardinals win outright as a double-digit dog. Your Miami Hurricanes avoid what seemed to be an upset early, scores a ton late to beat Duke 53-31. Tennessee makes good against Kentucky. The Cats, though, do cover as a 17.5-point underdog. In a moment for the 9-0 Indiana Hoosiers for the first time in IU football history, IU has covered in 8 consecutive games. Indiana is a wagon. Ranked in the top 10, now number 8. And Indiana will be at home on Saturday in Bloomington as a 2-touchdown favorite against Michigan. Welcome to the new era of college football.
Yeah, let me say something about this, too, because the college football is so down. Like, you look at the Miami Hurricanes. I love them. You know, I cheer for them. Cam Ward's going to win the Heisman because of how terrible the teams are coming up. And if they do play SMU in the ACC championship game and they do lose, that game might be 61-60, where he throws for 600 yards and 6 touchdowns, something to keep an eye out for. But Indiana, and you say, well, how can they be unbeaten and not like top 2 or 3? Whoever was the athletic director for Indiana, you need to scoop him up at any school you can get, because being able to somehow put together that string of games that you have and looking forward to playing Michigan next week, which you should beat, they're bad. I'm going to bet Ohio State when they play them, because I think Ohio State beats them by 4 touchdowns, Ben. Who have they played? You got to be kidding me, Indiana. They should be ejected from. They shouldn't be ranked in college football with that actual schedule they have. That's embarrassing, and we need to put them under investigation. If I'm commissioner, we throw Indiana out of college athletics.
Well, that's a tough look for a guy that hosts an odds show on a sports betting media network to not understand that Indiana is 8-1 against the spread, because we know when you do not play great competition, it's factored into the odds, and yet their cover percentage and their cover points per game margin is 18 points per game. This guy needs to be working on the casino betting side. Now let's get over to college basketball.
Let me honestly, forget college basketball for a second. Like Indiana's schedule right now, there's a reason why they're not ranked in the top 10.
For sure.
This is basically a Division II schedule.
What is Indiana's strength of schedule? You're going to talk big. What is Indiana's strength of schedule?
I don't know. Looks like
195th.
Looks like 195.
It's 106th entering Saturday. There is no doubt it was the easiest in the Big Ten. The remaining is 17th most difficult in the country. If they go 3-1 and their only loss in Columbus against Ohio State, do they make the college football playoff?
No way. There's no way they put them in the top 12.
They're going to. And you're going to sit there being a champion of the 12-team era, eating crow and your own words. You can't have it both ways. And by the way, Baylor and Gonzaga's numbers from a TV ratings perspective going to be monumental tonight, just to stuff it in your pie hole too.
Monumental. Remind that tomorrow, because everybody knows the Super Bowl, if it was played at 11:30 at night, would do better ratings than 6:20 start. Everybody knows this, right?
Because we're comparing the Super Bowl to a college basketball opener in Spokane when Monday Night Football is being played at the same time. Brother, you're on one today, and you're wrong. We're going to talk CBB up next.
Right side. Oh.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Tatum has fixed that hitch. He now shoots it at the top of his jump. His release is really pure. And right now he's shooting it at 49% from three. Now, I'm not saying he's going to shoot at 49% from three for the season. But if he's at 42.3%, Lord have mercy, look out below. Jason Tatum, right now, my number 6 player in the NBA.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from, just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Are you okay with him moving to the head of the class of the Heisman with those 2 games? Because he wasn't even in the discussion before those 2 games.
This is a big opportunity for Dylan if he wants to continue to make his case for the Heisman Trophy, and I think he's shown that. I mean, what is he, a 6th-tier player who's going to probably end up setting most of the passing marks because he's been around for so long? So why not also throw a Heisman Trophy in the mix?
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
$356 Division I men's and women's college basketball games to start the 2024-25 college basketball season on this Monday. And Donnie Rightside will watch each and every one. DRS, let's go big picture, though, to welcome people to this new year in college hoops. We start on the men's side, looking at the national championship odds. Duke is the number 7 team in the country, and yet Duke, with an incredibly talented freshman class, 5 guys that will factor into John Shire's rotation, all ranked in the top 18 of the 2024 recruiting class, are a big reason why the Blue Devils are the favorites to win the national championship. And not just those 5 guys, but number 1 of 1 of 1 of 1, his name, Cooper Flagg. He is going to be the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft. He will play his college basketball season in Durham. Just behind, though, you will see Connecticut. UConn 11-1, the 2-time reigning national champs. Stan Hurley using this graphics board as further motivation for his Huskies team because he always finds an angle. Donnie, let's start with Connecticut. Will you be betting the Huskies at any point this year to win a 3rd consecutive national title?
I mean, there could be a chance. Like, I always talk about this as being the silly season, right, which starts now, early November, all the way through December. A lot of out-of-conference thing, a lot of getting your rotations down, a lot of learning about these teams before we actually get into conference play, which I love starting in January. Like, you want to tell me, like, mid-February through the end of April, fantastic. But this part is a little bit hard trying to get to know teams, and also much harder in this day and age of the transfers. Like, we were just going over, like, a big game tonight and saying, like, ooh, I remember this name from somewhere because I just don't know who these players are this early in the season. But the one thing I do know is I know who the coaches are, I know who the good ones are, and Hurley may be the best out of the bunch in the entire nation. So if I'm just looking without seeing the full roster for UConn at an 11-1 price, that sounds about right, because I know Hurley, come time for tournament time, this team, whether or not they're great to start the season, they will be great by the time they get to the tournament.
For sure, and they did lose a lot of the pieces that we know from last year's team, and of course the team even the year before that won the first national championship in stores. Donovan Clingan, Steph Castle, both lottery picks in the NBA. Tristan Newton, that steady point guard presence who did it all, is gone. Alex Caravan returns, talented freshman class for UConn as well. They added a couple of transfer pieces like Aiden Mahaney, I believe the name is. I might be forgetting his last name, a transfer from St. Mary's. UConn is going to be there. The Big East is going to be a great conference as well. In fact, the Huskies trying to make history. No team has won 3 consecutive national championships in men's college hoops since John Wooden led UCLA from 67 to 73. That's a 7, Pete. The most recent back-to-back national champs, and the result in that 3rd straight season. Duke in 93, bounced in the round of 32. 2008, Florida missed the tournament. We shall see about UConn again. They are talented, and Dan Hurley is the best coach, in my opinion, currently in college basketball. UConn will be a tournament team. How deep they go, that remains to be seen. Just one final point on the Huskies before we look at the rest of the country. UConn is 33-1 in non-conference action the last 2 seasons, including, of course, a perfect 12-0 in the NCAA tournament, all 12 victories by double digits. The average margin of victory for UConn in non-conference action, including the tourney, in the last 2 years is 23.7 points per game. The only loss was against a top 5 Kansas team on a Friday night last December, DRS, in a wildly close game down to the buzzer in Lawrence against KU, who, by the way, the Jayhawks enter the year as the number 1 team in the preseason poll for a 2nd consecutive season.
Yeah, but you're also looking at that top, right? Duke, that plus 950 price. If you go down to 20-1, the furthest part there is Auburn. But I do want to focus on Duke and some things that we talk about just being fans of college basketball. Like when the hated teams have their good players and look like they might be able to go on a run like Duke. Like Cooper Flagg is a sensational player. Anybody reading up on what this kid can actually do for his age, they're going to be so much fun to watch, appreciate, and also hate at the same time. So I think college basketball is in a really good spot this year. If Duke is really good, they're going to be must-watch television all the way through, no doubt about it, Ben.
There are so many talented players on this Dukies team, of course, led by Cooper Flagg. Bakan Nupel is there. Kaman Maliwak is there as well. A very talented freshman core. Tyrese Proctor returns. Mason Gillis, the transfer from Purdue, will provide some of that veteran experience. I'll just say this about the Blue Devils, that ACC price, okay, Final Four price, sure. We know now in this evolution of college basketball that veteran presence come the NCAA tournament and the month of March often win the day, so I would avoid the national championship price, especially being the shortest of any team entering the country. DRS, your thoughts on this? We found an interesting distinction. Of course, our beautiful show, The Early Line, is sponsored by the beautiful FanDuel Sportsbook, despite Donnie's battle with FD the last month or so.
We broke bread.
In certain spots, DRS, yeah, we're good now. Everything has been figured out there. In certain spots, Cooper Flagg, who was only 17 years old, turns 18 near the end of December.
Yes.
He has a price listed to win the Wooden Award, and in other sportsbook operators, he is the favorite. On FanDuel, he is not listed because he is only 17 years old and thus currently a minor. How will you use that to evaluate the individual award of the men's Wooden Award? What do you mean he is?
It's funny you just said that because we were always looking at that. I'm looking right now, John Warden, a winner, Cooper Flagg, Duke, plus 500 on FanDuel right now this morning. How about that? Because you're right about this. Kevin and I brought up this topic like a week and a half ago. Like, oh, can you actually? I have him right here on my screen. Yeah, he's right there on my screen. I'm watching. I'm looking at it right now. 5-1 price. But I get what you were saying, where he's 17, so some books won't allow you to operate and bet him. I have him right now, 5-1.
On
Should
what?
I bet it right now?
What site?
The ticket? Yeah, New Jersey, FanDuel. I'm looking at it right now. He's 5-1. Yeah.
So this is just a behind the scenes thing. Different states, of course, have different odds available in robust markets. I often use the Indiana site to see all of those betting markets available.
You got to drive over
Jersey
today, Ben.
is
Come on.
up there.
Drive over today, Ben. Come on now.
Because I actually think he's going to win the award.
Well, look at that. 5-1
So he's
price.
not listed on Indiana, though, DRS.
Yeah.
He's not here on Indiana. Huh.
Yeah, I was surprised. As Joe was saying in the background, too.
So
He's right
Cooper
about
Flagg,
that. It wasn't there.
The Wooden Award favorite. All right, Monday Night Football, a preview next.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Tatum has fixed that hitch. He now shoots it at the top of his jump. His release is really pure. And right now he's shooting it at 49% from three. Now, I'm not saying he's going to shoot at 49% from three for the season. But if he's at 42, 43%, Lord have mercy, look out below. Jason Tatum, right now, my number 6 player in the NBA.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in the set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Are you okay with him moving to the head of the class at a Heisman with those 2 games? Because he wasn't even in the discussion before those 2 games.
This is a big opportunity for Dylan if he wants to continue to make his case for the Heisman Trophy, and I think he's shown that. You know, I mean, what is he, a 6th-tier player who's going to probably end up setting most of the passing marks because he's been around for so long? So why not also throw a Heisman Trophy in the mix?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
What a Monday we have in store. We end out week number 9 in the opening half of this 2024 NFL season with Monday Night Football inside Arrowhead Stadium between the Chiefs and the Buccaneers. KC, of course, the only undefeated team left in the National Football League, a perfect 7-0. The Chiefs have covered in 5 of those 7 victories. Looking to make it 8-8 tonight against the shorthanded Tampa Bay Buccaneers and DRS. As we see from the odds, KC expected to remain perfect and unbeaten. 9.5-point spread in favor of the Chiefs. 45.5 is that total. So it's not really a question, DRS, if the Chiefs will remain at 8-0, but can they cover in 6 of 8 victories this year?
Look, you never want to take the Chiefs typically over a touchdown because they're the perfect team that, Ben, is up double digits the entire game, understands that we don't need to win by double digits. Let's just run the clock out. Let's make effective plays here. And if the other team scores a late touchdown and get inside the number, who cares? We're not actually trying to cover spreads. So from that aspect, I do agree that it's hard to bet Kansas City. But also from a Tampa Bay perspective, I don't know how they're going to slow down Kansas City's offense. And Kansas City's offense hasn't been that great this season. But now it looks like Kelsey getting his mojo back, touchdown last week. You know, another week for Nuke Hopkins getting grained into that offense. Patrick Mahomes to say, okay, hey, look at last week. I threw multiple touchdowns. Let's try to do that on a week-to-week basis and get the band back together like we did for so many years. Kareem Hunt should have lanes to run here. And also, the one thing we used to always say about the Kansas City team is, boy, you got to get in the shootouts and beat Kansas City and stay ultra aggressive. Who would have thought that the better version of the Kansas City Chiefs is not the offense, but the actual Steve Spagnuolo-led defense? They've been sensational. And if you're going to say, hey, look, Tampa Bay is coming to town, Ben. They got Mike Evans. They got Chris Godwin ready to go. Oh, no, they don't have either one of those guys. I look for that defense to just be like a boa constrictor and strangle out that Tampa Bay offense. I think Kansas City does win by double digits tonight, Ben.
Yeah, DRS, when you look at KC, right, it was the story last year. An offense that, by Kansas City Chiefs standards, 23 points per game, middle of the pack in the NFL, was nowhere close to the previous 5 years when KC was a top 10, top 5 scoring offense each and every year, averaging better than 28 points per game. But the difference was a scoring defense that was second best in the NFL, allowing just a tick over 17 points per game. In this year, Kansas City, third best scoring defense entering week 9, allowing just 17.6 points per game. And the Raiders scored a late touchdown last week to cover the number. They were getting 7.5, 8.5 at home. Gardner Minshew threw a touchdown pass with just over 2 minutes. Insignificant for the result, but did affect, of course, the cover and the stats now that Kansas City allowed 20 points per game last week. This Chiefs defense is the real deal. And the Buccaneers, DRS, last year, 9-4 against the spread as an underdog. 6 outright wins. Won their first 2 games outright as a dog this year, but now shorthanded. They are going to be booked as an underdog often. And in their last 3 games as a dog, they have not covered in any of the 3. They've also gone over in 5 straight because the defense has allowed 36-plus points in 4 consecutive games. How much offense do we see tonight as we look at the total?
Yeah, by the way, we're getting some breaking news in the NFL, which we're going to get to in just a few moments. But let me finish this question out here. I think we see the Kansas City Chiefs hit their team total tonight. I do think also Patrick Mahomes goes over 1.5 touchdown passes. And I know Kareem Hunt is expensive on offense to score a touchdown tonight. He's scoring a touchdown tonight. I'm all chiefed up for us tonight, Ben.
Yes, you are chiefed up, DRS. You're going over 1.5 passing touchdowns for Patrick Mahomes. But as we focus on the NFC South, only one team is above 500. It's the Atlanta Falcons. Some breaking news right here on this Monday on the early line. Donnie, we kind of talked about it jokingly. We said there should be an overhaul in New Orleans. It just occurred. Dennis Allen, in his 3rd year as the Saints head coach, his 9th with the franchise, spent 6 years as Sean Payton's defensive coordinator before being named the head man, has now been fired. The Saints have dropped 7 consecutive games. Again, the breaking news here on this Monday, following the Week 9 Sunday slate, the New Orleans Saints have fired Dennis Allen.
And Dennis Allen should have been fired here. It's almost like the curse of even last year. I was really high on the Saints, not necessarily win the NFC or the Super Bowl, Ben, but just to make the playoffs and win the division. They underperformed last year, didn't get it done. This year in a topsy-turvy NFC South where anybody could have won it, if you just had any semblance of a decent football team, they're already checked out on the season after an embarrassing loss yesterday. This had to be done the day before the deadline. Now start to make other moves and start to rebuild for the future.
Well said, DRS. We'll talk a little bit more about that and Monday Night Football when Hour 3 starts up next.